some days are better than others. That's life. That's called being human. That's called being reality, how we sleep or don't sleep, the interactions with our loved ones around us, and that all impacts.
As a business owner, there's nothing more I love, and I will spend money all day. I actually just paid you today, which is funny, but because I have a peace of mind of knowing I have experts in my corner, they're helping me educate myself.
Stanford a few years ago did a study. Do you know what the number one challenge that business owners face?
Focus.
Loneliness.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Cody Cottle Show, a podcast that was designed to help you become the best version of you. And one of the ways that we do that is over my lifetime, I have been really intentional about building relational equity with incredible human beings that are doing amazing things. And I'm really honored and excited to have my friend Chris on the show today because Chris not only is my tax coach and my advisor on everything to do with taxes and so much more in structuring things inside of my companies, he's also a really good friend. He's a man I admire so much. He's a man that has a good heart. And guys, you've listened to this podcast for a while, then you know I only bring people into this room that have a good heart, that have a good intention, that align, that have good values, that are good human beings. So welcome to the show today, Chris Middleton.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Grateful, incredibly grateful.
Man, Chris hopped on a plane at what time this morning?
7:30.
And you flew from Sacramento to San Diego.
Yep. Texted you. I was like, hey, I'm here. And you're like, whoa, I'm not here yet.
He caught me off guard, guys. I'm like dallying around, taking my time today because the first guest wasn't able to make it. And Chris like, yo, I'm at the studio. Hops in an Uber, comes over here. But it says so much to you, man, being willing to hop on a flight, come down here today to record. So thank you. Your time is valuable. We don't take it lightly. And are you ready to have some fun?
Absolutely.
Cool.
We were supposed to be recording earlier because we were cracking all sorts of bad jokes about beard swapping.
Oh, yeah. So, guys, we might as well share it now. You can't say that and then we not talk about it. Right. The guys were complimenting my beard out there. Chris, and just so you guys know, the camera doesn't do the beard justice.
It doesn't. I mean, I've seen it on, I haven't seen you since, year and a half ago.
Yeah, when you're down here for the event.
Yeah, and then I show up, I'm like, whoa, the beard looks so much better in real life.
Yeah, so just disclaimer, beard may appear larger than it actually is. I swear, and sometimes with all the lights and they make it frizzy and the barber time up. But anyways, that's my...
See, the challenges that people with hair have.
Yeah,
I just don't know what that means.
No, I feel bad. I really don't though, because you got a sexy goatee.
I try.
You do.
Yeah.
So anyways, I was talking with these guys out there about my beard and they were asking about it. And I said, I grew up, I hit puberty late. I never had facial hair. And I would look in the mirror. I read Law of Attraction. I was like, wait, I can attract anything my mind thinks of. I can become. And I would look in the mirror. I'd be like, you're going to be a handsome man with a full beard. You're going to be muscular. And I swear to God, I manifested this beard.
Well, so one of the secrets in life is the difference between men and women. You ever heard this? Women look in the mirror and they're beautiful and they're amazing and they're wonderful, but all they see is their split ends on their hair and they're like frumpy or whatever flaw, and they just hone in on that. And men sit there and their guts hanging out and they're wrinkled and they're like, you sexy beast.
They're like, look at those biceps. Hey, those pecs are getting big.
Got the man boobs going.
Right, it's like sagging a little, but you're like, but the top is solid.
But as an entrepreneur, we talked a little bit before we started saying what is it that so focused in my life right now, and that's a huge thing as an entrepreneur is you almost have to have that bravado, that confidence, like, hey, I can handle anything that the world throws at me, because we're so busy putting out fires in life.
You have to have it.
You have to be confident in who you are. And I get this from you. I credit you for this. So don't make me leak here. But Cody, you've always told me God has something that you have gifts to give the world. And there have been days where that's kept me going because I'm like, you know what? The life beating you down, whatever it is, but I'm like, I have something to give the world. And that's been an inspiration to me since I met you. So that's something you've given me.
Man, we're gonna start crying first 10 minutes in the episode. Yeah. Man, that's powerful, Chris. It's interesting because I feel like I've had this ability since a young boy that when I look at people, I just see them only through the lens of like who God created them to be and like the greatness. You know, like we all have flaws, we all have mistakes and different things. And it's like, I've always seen that. And it's always broken my heart, especially people I care about when they're so hard on themselves. And it's like, man, if you just saw yourself, like the way that I see you, the way that God sees you, like Chris, there will never, ever, ever be another man on this earth that walks the same as you.
True. That's true. And, you know, as a parent, I have two daughters, 9 and 6 years old. And, you know, I look at them and I'm like, as they're getting older. I mean, my 9-year-old woke up the other day, put together this slapping outfit. Just, she looked amazing. Everything was coordinated and she's all, "What's up, bruh?" What? But you know, I look at her and I'm like, I still see that little baby girl and the, you know, all the pictures that I see pop up in my memories on my phone. And I'm just, no matter where she goes in life, she will always be my little girl. Yeah. And that's where if we have that ability to look inside of ourselves, and entrepreneurs have to do that. We have to do that because there's so much pressure financially, you know, and we're talking out there with some of the guys, you know, in certain industries, and we live in a wonky world, economically, morally, everything's just wonky times. And we have to be able to say, we don't care what's going out in the storms in the world. We have to create our own center, our own economy, our own reality, so to speak, and just say whatever's being pushed in upon us, we have to bootstrap it up and say, let's go. Let's figure this out.
So good. And I always say I have to play my own game, right? Yeah. Like as an entrepreneur, chaos is always coming towards you. And at times chaos is erupting from within you and what's in proximity that you love and care about. And a man, especially, like, we have to, in the middle of all of that chaos, stay grounded and play our own game and not let the chaos throw us off and take us out of the game. And at times, as an entrepreneur, and many times over the last few years with all of the chaos of the world, I don't know about you, man, but some days we're just trying to get through the day. We're like, hey, I can't think about the 10-year plan, the 5-year plan. I just need to survive today.
Well, and sometimes that chaos too is self-imposed. I was just like, one of my heroes is my father, and I was chatting with him and about, you know, just the brain like never shutting down. Entrepreneurs, I think we have these constant flow of ideas and constant flow of what can I do to reinvent myself or create more value for my clients or my customers, or what can I do to ensure success in the next venture that I'm doing. Again, there's a lot of pressure there. And so I think entrepreneurs, we can get inside of our own heads to the point where we distract ourselves from an immediate goal. Like what's our focus? So for me, like the ability to say, I'm going to focus in on this. I'm going to break my life down into what do I need to be working on next? And when I was growing up, I had a leader at church and scouts that said, you know, we have a firm but flexible policy. And I was like, what does that mean? He said, there are things in our lives that are firm, morally, you know, ethically, we don't budge on. But then there are other things that can be flexible. And so you just have to learn to say, where am I putting up those guardrails that I do not deviate from this? This is who I am in my business, in my life, you know, morally, church, whatever it is that guides you. Where are those guardrails? And then where you say, hey, I've got flex in my life where I'm allowed to deviate or allowed to do that, right? So
yeah, dude, it's so good. And just the fact of, you hit on a few things. One, the value of protecting our focus, even from ourselves.
Right.
Another aspect of that is our discipline, because the truth is we are very much emotional beings. And a lot of the times you're not going to feel like doing the thing that you really need to do to move the needle forward, to get where you keep saying you want to go and have wrote down on a piece of paper as a goal. And yet you wake up today and you're like, I know I should record those 8 modules for that course, but I had a rough day and life happened and this happened and I'm sad and I'm depressed and I really don't think I can show up. And it's so hard. And there is some grace in that. So how have you navigated that as an entrepreneur?
And I'm not perfect at it, and there's definitely been days on my drive over here. My Uber driver, super sweet gal. She has a son who's really apparently a prominent quarterback. She was talking him up. I Googled him real quick. I'm like, oh yeah, he's doing all right. Good for him. So we're talking about, the consistency effort and how some days are better than others. That's life. That's called being human. That's called being reality. What we eat, how we sleep or don't sleep, the interactions with our loved ones around us, and that all impacts. But to do micro resets. So as part of my daily routine, right? And my fiance, she's like, you're really structured. She's like, you're super spontaneous. She's like, you're really spontaneous about a lot of things in life, but you're also very structured and very predictable. And I'm like, oh, really? How am I predictable? And then she kind of made some observations. I'm like, oh, I feel good about that. Because she's like, every week you map out what's coming up that week. What are your obligations? Where do you need to be? What do you need to prep for? And then every day I start out and say, okay, where do I need to be this day, right? And I manage chaos that's in my life by going into, I'll put my phone into do not disturb in airplane mode, literally. Like just shut it down and then focus
Mine
in.
stays in it.
Yeah, I noticed.
Yeah. So anyone that calls me, unless you're my mom, my sister, or my fiance,
right,
you will not get a hold of me.
Right. And so that's not a bad thing, right? To be hyper-focused and intentional about your life and where you're spending your time, right? Because that's how we accomplish things. And if you have a mission, if you have purpose in life, and if you're like, I'm going to impact the world positively, we don't have enough people like that. I feel like, if you've ever read the book Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand.
Dude, I've only watched the movie series, which was crazy, but I've heard the book is amazing.
It's super long. Like it's I call it a love letter to capitalism, but amazing book. And Ayn Rand came from communist Russia, escaped the Iron Curtain, came to America. So she's very pro-capitalism, anti-socialism. And, I read that book, and I'm kind of rereading it right now. I'm listening to it actually on Audible. And I'm like, man, it feels like the world we're in today. There's like constraints and supply and demand issues and all kinds of stuff, and government intervention and restrictions and all these things. And it just feels like it's such a struggle sometimes to do business. But at the end of the day, the whole novel is about overcoming those challenges and creating the movement of creators or innovators or people that are there to move things forward. That's what keeps society moving forward, is the creators. And if you have purpose in life, and if you have intentionality and focus, and you can say no to things, and it's okay to say no, be like, hey, that's not for me. Yeah. That's super dope. That's amazing. Not for me right now. Yeah. That's okay. And people, we get worried we're going to offend somebody, or we're going to do, or we just get distracted. And your greatness and your mission of what you're there to accomplish, if it doesn't align, you just have to be focused and centered to be able to say that aligns. So, for what I do professionally, I help people with that. I help them stay focused in an area where they don't want to even think about it.
Yeah, they don't even want to look at it.
Right.
Taxes,
yeah.
But you bring so much more than just taxes. All right, before we go into the tax stuff, because we will, there's so much gold in what we're digging in right now. Couple things. Number one, you talked about creators and innovators are the ones that move the world forward. I want to start by talking about, how does one know if they're one of those people, or can anyone become that? Like, what tips do you have for people of being that in their world? And then after that, I want to go into when someone feels that they are called to build something or innovate or create a company or a business or a concept, how do they actually stay the course and protect themselves from themselves and distractions of the world to actually see the thing through? So let's start with the first one, then let's go to the second.
My dad, again, has had probably the biggest influence on me. I love my father. He's my hero, and who I look to and lean on and watch what he's overcome in his life and the challenges that he's come and who he is. As a man, is consistent. And is he a perfect father? No, neither am I. And that's what inspires me. But he always told me, because I was a psychology major before I switched to accounting and business.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was going to.
It makes sense now.
Yeah. Why I'm a people person?
Yeah. And just, you're very different than what someone would think of someone that does taxes.
Yeah, I get that a lot. Yeah. So, he told me I decided I wanted to be a psychologist because I wanted to help people. I love helping people. I love lifting other people up. And I just got to a point where I was like, I can't be in that profession because I felt like I would take it home with me. I felt like I would take those burdens. I wouldn't be able to detach. So I decided that's not right for me. So I was trying to figure out where to go, what to do. And my dad said, get a marketable skill, develop a marketable skill that people do something that people don't want to do, right? I think our unsung heroes in society are garbage men, people that do, garbage men and women that handle that, are janitors, people that, are in the trades. They don't get enough credit for the value that they bring because they are artists in themselves. They're artists in what they do. And there are no shame in rolling up your sleeves and doing the hard, boring, dirty work, right?
Yeah.
And so he said, whether it's being a garbage man or, janitor or whatever it is you want to do. So I went into business school and accounting made sense. I was like, okay, it's weird because I'm not a super analytical person, but I look at the tax stuff as a puzzle. So to translate that to whoever, find something that you enjoy and you would find joy in helping others, right? If you can, I think Christ is our ultimate example. He lived to serve. He came to serve. And that's who we should strive to model our life after. He lifted others up, right? That was his entire mission.
Yeah.
So if we can mimic that and translate that theological, religious concept, into our professional lives, you can impact people in a very real way, whatever it is that you do, as long as it's not illegal, unethical, or immoral, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's critically important. And then Ron Willingham wrote a book called Integrity Selling in the 21st Century. And we hit on this a little bit earlier, how we're emotional, right?
Yeah.
And I think that can translate to our daily routines and our daily focus. He talks about the Z curve, right? You start here and say, here's this person's current state. You want them to be here, right? You want to get them to a better future state. But where are all the distractions that drive and all the things that impact you, preventing you from reaching that future state? So then, you want to bring people along if you have something to sell and something to provide to them. Say, well, here's where you are. Here's where I can help you get. And then if without me, here's where you're going to end up with all these, anti things that are going to not get you there. But I can bring you back to this state. So here's how we can help you. Yeah. And what I love about that book, it's a phenomenal sales Bible in essence, because he talks at the very beginning. He's like, look, if you identify somebody, you think that they need what you have, but then you figure out that they don't, walk away. You don't belong in their life. So, act with integrity.
Yeah.
And make sure that you're helping people in a real way. If you can show up and be that person to provide that solution for them, whether it's selling them a home or a car, or tutoring for their kid, or tax services, or broadcasting whatever it is that you're doing, make sure that you belong in that person's life.
Yeah, and one thing you sparked for me as you talked about this, when you talked about the enjoy and joy, I started thinking about like internal and external. And I had this realization that many of us look at career, job, business as what can it do for me? Like, hey, how much money can I make from this job? What is the pay? What is the salary? How much money would I make if I owned a business that did this? When that is actually the opposite of the way one should look at it. It really is through the lens of what contribution can I make to society through the gifts God gave me, and how can I serve others in a way that when I'm in the act of serving through the thing that I do, job, career, business, I have an enjoyment inside me. I genuinely enjoy the activity that I serve the other human beings through. And I find an external joy from the result they get from it. And because I serve others with a contribution into their life, I get a return on my investment.
Amen. And
that's it.
My mother is my other, hero. I homeschooled K through 12. I've never been to public school.
Do you know Esther's homeschooled her whole life?
I knew there was something off about it. No, I'm just
Yeah. All the homeschool kids are what I'm saying?
I tell
Shout
people,
out to my fiance.
Right, who's a total gem. So I tell people I homeschooled K through 12, and I'm kind of normal. I don't twitch too often, right? But my mom, I grew up in a home, 7 kids, big family, homeschooled all of them. There's a whole backstory to why we started homeschooling. But my mom said, she instilled in me that stick-to-itness, that you gotta have that drive. And she'd always say, stick to the job till it's through, or stick to the job like glue, stick to the job till it's through. And she's like, don't give up. But she also taught me to have joy in the journey. And I remember going to her once, and I was 16 years old, and she just recently told me this story. She said, you came to me, son, and you said, Mom, you don't have to hound me about my homework anymore. And at the time I had started taking junior college classes, and I was because I was outgrowing what she could teach me or I could be taught at home. So I was taking classes at the local JC. And she said, why don't I have to hound you anymore? And I said, because I figured out that I'm doing this for me, not for you.
Wow.
And she's like, oh, okay. And so at that point, I lit my own fire. I had my own drive, and I was like, okay, I'm going to accomplish these things under my own willpower.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing that entrepreneurs have to have is we have to be our own source of fire. And Stanford a few years ago, did a study. Do you know what the number one challenge that business owners face?
Focus.
Loneliness.
That makes sense.
Loneliness. And so that's part of what breeds that, you look at entrepreneurs and you're like, wow, these guys are all over the place, right? I mean, the Elon Musks of the world that have, just these they look like they're totally scattered, but they're lonely in the sense that they're trying to figure out, solve problems that, again, it's all on them. So there's incredible power in connecting with other entrepreneurs, in connecting with other people to say, okay, how do I network? How do I stay focused? How do I keep myself moving forward? That's why you see all these people joining masterminds and different things. Like the value of those things is not just what you learn, it's the camaraderie that you get.
It's actually more the camaraderie, the relationships, the connections, the knowing, man, these guys know what I'm going through. They're in their own way, they're going through it too.
Right.
They actually understand me. Yeah, that's so good. I think all my life I've kind of felt different. I don't know, maybe I've also realized a lot of us feel that way. So it's very common for every human being to feel like they're actually so different, and whether we are or not is another conversation in itself. But then as I got into business, there's a separation that happens because the majority of society live into conformity and they're trapped by dogma. And when we look around the world, so many people, if you ask someone, why do you get up and go to work every day? They really don't actually know why they get up and go to work every day.
Right.
And Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret, amazing tapes everyone should listen to. I have the book. I've listened to that probably 300 times. I've almost memorized probably every word in it. And he talks about, out of 100 people, maybe one actually know why. And only one's actually truly successful. And when you begin to think about this, so let's say you finally become self-aware of, everyone is going like a herd in this direction. They don't actually know why they're going in this direction. They don't actually know the purpose of why they got out of bed today, why they're doing the thing they're doing. And I don't think I want to go this direction anymore. And I really would like to go that direction, but it's kind of scary. There's no one over there. There's no well-worn path. It's all overgrown, but I'm going to walk that way anyways. And you begin to walk that way. And everyone in the herd begins to look at you. What are you doing? Criticize you, scrutinize you. You're dumb. You're an idiot. You're going to fail. That's the wrong way. It's never going to work out. Draw all of the things all the mistakes you made, everything you've ever done wrong, and just scrutinize you. And you have to leave that herd. of that comfort under scrutiny and continue to take one step after another. And many of the people that leave the herd turn and walk back to the herd because the scrutiny alone in leaving the pack is so painful and so hurtful, they can't walk through that. Then when you finally get on the trail, you're alone.
And beyond that, absolutely true. When we are social creatures, even the most introverted person among us is a social creature, and at some level cares about what other people think of them, right? That's who we are.
100%.
So that element.
We seek validation, whether we admit it or not, acceptance, to be a part of something greater than ourselves, to be surrounded by love and community and relationship.
Right. And so if you're forging a path on a trail that's not well worn, that's not beaten down, that's not easy, so you have this scrutiny behind you and these voices of doubt and these voices of everything that's coming at you, on top of the fact that it's a freaking struggle to put the next foot forward.
And then you're scrutinizing yourself.
Right.
Did I make the right mistake? Should I have left? It was comfortable back there. I'm not making money. You go through all the hurdles. Should I throw in the towel? Should I quit almost every day? But then every now and then you come across another guy wandering out there with you.
So there's an analogy that I heard once. Life is like a train. You're on this train ride, and it's an open boxcar. There's no shelter elements, right? You're the wind and the rain and the snow and the sleet and the cold air is all hitting you. And sometimes you're going through tunnels, and the smoke of the steam engine or the engines billowing and blowing, you're claustrophobic. But then every once in a while you come out and you see this vista. You come up on this overlook and you see the gorgeous view that you're like, oh, this is why I'm on this ride. And then you dive back down in the tunnel. So it's those moments where if we can take those moments of create more of those vista moments and endure the hard, boring work that needs to take place to get to those vistas, and then create ourselves a path where we can see more of that.
Yeah.
And there's so many ways you can do that. Again, focus. On the Uber drive over here, I was told the Uber driver about, James Clear and Atomic Habits. And I said, I love what he says, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. 1,000%. And that's where I'm at. I'm 41 years old. I've been self-employed for well over a decade. I've been in my business for almost 19 years. And at this point, I'm like, oh, okay. I know what I need to do. I just haven't taken the time.
And real quick, because on the beginning, the creators and the innovators, it starts with a hunger inside of you to want to do something different and more, leaving that pack, going out there, then outlasting the self-doubt and the outward doubt until you arrive at a place where you start getting traction. And then this is a perfect segment. I just wanted to piece that together because it's how my mind is, where now we start talking about habits, strategy, systems, processes, focus, right. Because the truth is all you have to do as an entrepreneur is stay in the game long enough to win. If you stay in business long enough, you will make money. You will have success. You will endure many failures, but ultimately you will get to a place that at one point in your life, you laid in your bed at night and you dreamed of, could I actually go here? You will find yourself in that place. But let's talk about what it takes to stay on that path, because I don't know about you, man, but there's a lot of days I want to jump off the path and go back to the warm bed. And it's the habits, it's the systems, it's the processes, it's the people around me that speak into my life that keep me going.
That's it. And, to have a clear understanding, because you're right, when you've heard about the 10,000 hour rule, mm-hmm. right? It takes 10,000 hours to kind of attain journeyman status, where you're like, okay, I now know that equivalent is 2,000 hours per year. So that's 5 years of your life. If you've been in the game for 5 years, most business owners start to be like, okay, I got this. Like, if a problem hits me, I kind of know how to figure it out, right? They're at that stage in their life. Well, that's that kind of critical point of failure where you're right. If you kind of have it figured out and there's still some problems that may be haunting you from your early days, the first 2,000 or 4,000 hours, right? Where you're like, oh, garbage. If I'd known now what I knew, or known then what I know now, I wouldn't have made that mistake, and I'm still kind of paying for that now. But you just got to continue to push forward and endure and apply the lessons that you've learned and the failures of the past to say, all right, I got this, and keep plowing forward. So systems and protecting your time, and then at the end of the day saying, okay, how can I be more efficient, leveraging technology, leveraging the knowledge of others, right? Find your passion zone, delegate stuff that's not. You've done a really good job of that. I'd like to give you some kudos. You know, you're an inspiration to me because I've been giving you advice and I've seen you, you know, early on, you're like, okay, I know I need to do that, but you just didn't have the time and focus. And your fiance Esther's been an amazing blessing to you because she's pushing, you know, lifts you up, which is amazing, and you lift her up. So I've seen you apply that in your life and being like, okay, this is not my strength, so I need to bring in a team. I need to get somebody other than me to help me with that. Michael Hyatt in his book Free to Focus talks about the levels of delegation, and there's actually 5. It's kind of cool if you read that book and you're like, whoa, these are cool. You know, there's delegate, but you're still very, very much involved. And then there's divestment, which is the highest level of delegation, where you're like, hey, take care of this. I don't need to know the result. I don't need you to circle back to me. I just need to know it's done. Your baby, and it's yours. But to get to that point, you have to kind of be involved and build the system and say, okay, this is my system for doing it and system for setting somebody else up for success to execute on that.
Yeah, dude, that's so good. So you have delegation to divestment. Do you remember the levels in between?
So the first is you delegate, like you say, hey, he uses the example of, I need to book a flight, right? So for me, to book the flight to come to you for this today, I just took care of it.
Right.
You know, took care of it. But maybe it's you say, hey, I want you to book a flight, but I want you to go and research what flights, this is when I need to be there. So come back to me and tell me what my options are. And then I'll book it myself. So that's, you've involved somebody else. And then you go to the next step and say, hey, I want you to research the flights and you make a recommendation to me, which one I should book. And so then it's narrowed down already for me. And then the third, I think, is you make the recommendation and then actually kind of book it and report back to me. And then the fourth is, I think there's a level in between there. I didn't look
No, that's
that
pretty,
up.
no, that's really good. And I want to simplify this for the audience, guys, because the truth about entrepreneurship that's so hard is like you have this vision to go build this business. You come up with this viable product or service. You bring it to market. Will anybody even buy this thing for me? Can I deliver it? And you get through all of that, which is really muddy water to get through. Then you find yourself at a spot where you're like, okay, I want to grow my company. I want more clients. I want more customers. I want to, help more people in the world. And you're like, oh crap. I have the CEO hat on, I have the marketing hat on, I have the sales hat on, I have the fulfillment, I'm the client success manager, I'm her support, I'm the HR department, and you're like pulling your hair out and you're like, what am I gonna do?
That's why I have no hair.
That's why Chris has no hair, guys. He literally tried to do it all on his own. And then I laugh because I always say this, if you hang around the barbershop long enough, sooner or later you're gonna get a haircut, except for Chris, he'll get a beard trim.
Your beard trim. Yeah.
So I say this because to simplify it for you guys, whether you're just starting the journey, you're on that journey, at some point you will hit your head on the wall enough times and say, okay, Chris, you've told me on our call a few times, others have told me, I got to delegate. Then you get into delegation and you're like, oh, there's multiple levels of delegation. This one I need to micromanage. I want to get to where it's just done.
Right.
But trust has to be built. SOPs have to be developed. You got to train. There's such a process. And I think one of the superpowers, I could just give a nugget for the audience. When you get into business and you get around guys like Chris, they have wisdom and they're always going to share with you their suggestions if you ask for it. Implement it. Write it down on a piece of paper, circle it, put it on a to-do list, a master task list. And even if it takes you 6 months to do, but you keep moving it to that new to-do list or that new task list, like me, at some point, you will be like, okay, I'm tackling this.
Repetition is the mother of memory. That's a saying my mother told me from the time I was knee-high to a grasshopper all the way to now. I still hear her say it today. Repetition is the mother of memory. So getting in those reps and saying, hey, so you that's called being human. And we beat ourselves up because we don't execute perfectly. But you learn by doing, and you learn by failing, and you learn by saying, okay, done is better than perfect. And the next round, I'm going to do it better. And the next round, I'm going to do it better. And the next round, I'm going to do it better. So,
good.
You execute, you put it into action, and then.
Well, let's talk about this, because you are a genius in your field. I would give you that much credit. Yes, kudos. Feel it for a minute. Let the head blow up. Blood pressure increase. But one thing I've seen with guys that are really good at something, they actually struggle the most with delegation. Mm-hmm. Have you struggled with offloading things to others because you're so naturally like, I can do this better than anyone else?
And that's a little bit of the accountant in me, where I'm a little OCD. Like, the accountant comes out every once in a while where I'm like, I don't like it. I'm a little OCD, but yes. And right now we're in the process. We hired a consulting firm that came in, and, we're paying them a very large amount, but we are getting amazing results, like amazing results. They're putting together what we call our BPMN, our business process mapping and notation. And that's all getting out of my brain onto paper. Here's what happened. It's the flow chart of here's what happens next in the process, and getting to the point where we can clone me.
And you can start inserting people into your mapping.
Exactly. Fire yourself from that role and get to the point where you can ultimately be a true CEO. And I say a true CEO in a company is somebody that doesn't know the names of everybody in their organization. You've arrived at true CEO status. Until then, you're a business owner operator. If you know the names of everybody in your organization on a first name basis, but when you get to that point where you've hired and scaled and put people in place, and not everybody wants to get to that level, but if your goal is to grow and scale your business and have a massive impact on the world, you have to be able to say somebody else with the brain, the gray matter that God has blessed them with, and their talents and energies that God has blessed them with, I'm going to trust them.
Yeah.
I'm going to give them.
And understand, guys, Chris isn't saying like, to become this crude CEO where you don't care about your people or know anyone. It's actually a true form of building something bigger than yourself and saying, I don't need all the credit. I don't need to do everything. I don't need to be the genius behind everything. I'm actually going to create the vision, the dream, the roadmap to get the team there. And then I'm going to build a team and have others help me build a team of people I don't even know, that commonly together we can work towards an objective. And there's that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So I just want to preface that, because people that aren't in entrepreneurship, aren't in business, could hear this and be like, you guys just want to be super wealthy CEOs and douchebags. And it's like, no, understand that this is the level you have to play at if you want to impact the world on a level of Elon Musk or something like that. I sometimes hate using Elon and Jeff Bezos at this level because they're like the richest guys in the world, but
they're very polarizing.
But like, think about the companies that have changed our world. Like, even a company like, let's just say Ford, for example, and what they did with automobiles. Do you think the CEO of that company knows everybody that works in it?
Nope. And the purpose, that kind of takes you back to your purpose. And if you can understand your purpose and why you get up and who you serve. And my business partner and I, we put together packages of service models to say, okay, let's meet people where they are. Do they belong in our highest tier where we're going to do a full-blown tax remodel for them? Or are they like not there yet? And we're very careful, and we vet people and make sure that we're putting them in the optimal place where we can serve them. But we have a saying, we say we want to upserve. Don't upsell, we upserve. And by that, I mean, if somebody's in our middle tier and they're like, I really want this element of your highest tier, we're like, well, you know what? We're going to give that to you. Like, if there are certain elements where like we can't because they incur cost to us or burden our time, to the point where we're like, we can't do that. But we've identified elements where, and they're actually elements that a lot of people want. We're like, oh, you know what? We're going to throw that in there. Yeah. We're going to upserve you and give you that ability to have that, because you think that will bless your life and impact your life in a meaningful way. We agree. And outside of that one or two elements, we feel like we're going to serve you with the most impact here. So, if you can keep your mentality of service, and again, I point to the Savior as who he was, he came to serve. And if we approach life with an attitude of service, an attitude of how can I help you? if I can't help you, if I can't bless you, if your life is not significantly better by me or my team, my process, whatever it is being involved, we don't have any business really, hey, cool, good to meet you, and I'm part of your
and
network.
it's keeping that heart posture and that purpose tied into the vision, the mission, the core values, the culture of the company. And to do that at a high level it's harder than people think.
It is. So you have to be operating from a place of, from the right place and the right purpose. And to your point, people that might listen, oh, you guys want to be billionaire CEOs. Yeah. I mean, what's wrong with that? Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
If I could help enough people in the world solve enough problems that a fraction percentage of that results in me becoming a billionaire, absolutely.
Right.
Because of the ripple effect we have made is far beyond than the person that's probably speaking those words.
And I forget, I saw something the other day, and it was talking, it's 10x, the book 10x is greater than 2x.
Dude, I just listened to something by that guy this morning. That you just saying that. What's his name?
Darren Hardy wrote a book.
Dr. Ben Hardy.
Ben Hardy with Darren Hardy's another book.
He partnered with the guy that wrote Who Not How.
Dan Sullivan.
Yeah. Who's strategic coaching.
So the book 10x is easier than 2x. And I love Grant Cardone and his 10x rule, right? But the 10x I'm on my second round of 10x is easier than 2x. It's part of my daily routine. I spend some time reading a book. Right?
I'm grabbing it right now, guys.
It's an amazing book. So Dan Sullivan said, money, like people that make lots of money doesn't change who you are if you're fundamentally that person, right? If you're a bad person, you make tons of money, you're going to do bad things with that money.
Yeah.
If you're a good person and you make tons of money, you're going to do good things with that money. So money is not the root of evil. It's the use of the money, right? What you put into play in your life. So at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with the capitalist society and what we do. And I mean, we all have to eat. We all have to feed our families. We all take time to unplug and go, on a trip and vacation and stuff like that, right? Create memories with our kids, with our significant others. Nothing wrong with any of that. You can do a lot of good, and that's phenomenal.
I just want to show implementation, action. I meet so many people in my life that say they're going to do something. 95% of you never do it. I have built, dude, sorry, this is a tangent, but even when like someone messages me and like pray for me on something, I stop what I'm doing and pray right then, because if I don't, it won't happen. And the reality is 95% of us do not have the discipline to do the thing we said we were going to do. If we didn't add it to our calendar, if we don't do it right now, if we don't add it to a to-do list that we actually get done, it will not get done. So do a little tangent, take action. When people suggest a good book, Esther laughs at me because every week there's Amazon packages on my doorstep of books, because every room I'm in with high-level people that suggest a book, I buy it. She's like, why? I'm like, because that is implementation. That is, but you bought 300 books this year. You're not going to read. You're right. I'll only read 50 of them. But you know what? I have 250 more, and I am building a library of the most best intellectual wisdom in the entire world, recommended by people that have results that I want to have. And that is my most valuable asset I'll ever own.
I hear that, and I agree with you. I'm gonna counterbalance a little bit. Yeah, there are some amazing books, and Alex Hormozy, right? There's a lot of people that I respect and follow and look at, and I like. He's kind of hot at the moment, so I really like Alex Hormozy and his messaging. But he's like, you can read and absorb all these books, or in the vein of focus, right? Because I've been on that myself, where I've
understand this. It doesn't mean I read every book front to back.
Right. I have every book that I've read front to back, and I'm a speed reader. So I bought this book for my birthday a little while ago, and it was all about creating changing your business model for accounting practices. Woo! Super interesting.
That sounds
right?
really fun.
Riveting, right? So I couldn't sleep one night, and I just had a lot on my brain. Picked up that book and blew through the book in about 3 hours, right? And it is about 400 pages. I read fast,
yeah.
and I have a method but I paused, and now I'm rereading it because I'm going back to the sections where I'm like, okay, I want to dive deeper into that and fully internalize that. But that one book, like, I took it to my business partner, And in our Monday morning meeting, we blew up our entire business model and reassembled it.
Wow.
And he's like, wow, this is dope. So
you did find a nugget in there, but you have a point. Like, we are drowning in a world full of information. So guys, like, when I say that, it doesn't mean all of my focus is going to trying to keep up with reading these books.
Right.
It basically means I'm building a library of books that solve problems that people I've gotten around have recommended. And when I have a problem I need to solve, I actually go to my library and I'm like, which of these talk about that?
Right. And so that's where if you implement, take action and read and absorb and be like, okay, cool. Now you're primed for what I call micro resets, right? You know what your big picture, you know what your big purpose is. At this moment in time, your struggle might be blah, whatever, insert struggle.
Yeah.
And there might be this one book where it's like, oh, that really kind of go back. And if you can spend some time expanding your mind and thinking beyond yourself and the present, that book or the concepts in there will be, oh, okay, here. Alex Hormozi is kind of a great example. He's not saying anything new.
No, but he simplifies it so simple.
Yeah, the way that he communicates it. So there's a book called The Irresistible Offer.
Oh, yeah.
By Mark Joyner. And when Alex Hormozi's $1 million offers came out, I was already neck deep into the Irresistible Offer. And I was like, oh. So I read Alex Hormozi's book. Like, oh, he's just saying everything, but on more of an updated and a simplified way that this guy's saying. Well, I'd already spent about 20 hours. Like, I'd read that book 4 times over trying to craft and create an offer for my business. And then I read Alex Hormozi's, and everything that he was saying resonated that much deeper because I was hearing it in a different way, Same thing with religious, like that's why you go to church every week. That's why you read the Bible. That's why you spend time with God, because at this moment in my life, I'm not receiving. Like, he's sending the beams, and I'm just like, I'm a dum-dum, so I'm not receiving it. But we evolve, make mistakes, grow, pick ourselves up, and then at some point we get to a place where we're like, oh, gotcha.
Yeah, and I think when we read, we go to get different things from it. Often in life, like when we read, we're reading through someone's opinion of a topic or a subject matter through their lens, through their perspective. And in one hand, yes, sometimes we're surgically trying to find a piece of wisdom, information, knowledge, or nugget to go implement to get X result. Other times we actually just want to get a little motivated, a little inspired. Maybe we're looking for a creative spark to come out of the book that sparks new ideas from us from the way they did. Maybe we're trying to learn how to better articulate communicating things that we want to communicate in the way that they communicate. So when I look at books, I just like, there's such a level of all of those things going on. And then the ones I read the most common for me, like my true go-tos, have nothing more than things that motivate me, inspire me, and help me adjust my habits back on track. Yep. I have read Atomic Habits 4 times. I've read Think and Grow Rich like 7, 8 times. There are books I go back to because, for one, I get really excited when I read them. I get really motivated. I get really inspired. And I just get such a reminder of the habits. And I don't think I'll ever stop doing that. Other times, there's some of these guys out here, I won't drop their names. Their books are so boring to me, but they have a piece of information that is so necessary to the growth of my company or my life that I skim through the book to find exactly where they talk about X. I go right to it. I pull out of it on a blank piece of paper, like the conceptual idea, and then I brainstorm how I can implement it in my life and my business. Then I take that to my partners, and then we mastermind it for about an hour. We put a plan of action together, and we execute.
Right. Yeah, and that's what you should absorb. Anytime you're in learning and absorption mode, you should be looking for, what can I do to put this into action? Because I came across the other day, I have this gal, she came to us, and she's on track to pay about $350,000 in taxes.
Ouch.
In just her federal tax bill, not including state, right? And in about 30 minutes, I identified conservatively about $127,000 in tax savings. So almost a little over a third of her tax bill, right? And I'll say this, anybody that says, oh, I want to be in the zero tax bracket, I'm like, cool, bro, you don't want to make any money, because they call it income tax for a reason, right?
I want to pay taxes. And that's so what people, because if I pay a lot of taxes, I made a lot of money and I impacted a lot of lives.
Right. So at the end of the day, she's super savvy, and she came to me through a network. She subscribes to this newsletter, and I'm listed on I pay $200 a year to be one of the professionals that people can come talk to about this newsletter, right? And so I told her, I said, you're super savvy. You have a lot of knowledge, and I'm impressed because you've already taken action. What's missing is you need a professional who this is their daily. And we talked about focus a little bit, and she's like, yeah, what we're talking about now, we had a micro conversation about that. And she's like, you're right. I'm all over the map, and I need somebody that can kind of help me stay focused on executing and keeping those strategies in place. So at the end of the day, anytime you're in absorption mode, my point is you should be taking away and saying, what's one thing I can do right now?
Yeah, that's
right
so
now,
good.
To take action, because knowledge is not power, knowledge applied.
Yeah. Hey, so now take us into just go a little deeper on protecting your focus, structuring with systems, because you're a heady guy with this. And we've had some conversation. I've seen what you've done, and I've even learned from you, and I've gone and applied. Yep. So I gotten results with it. But share with the audience some things you've learned along the way. How can one protect their focus better and structure their day and their systems and processes to achieve their goal?
So you have to understand how you work. If you're, everybody thinks, oh, I got to get up at 5 a.m. and go work out, and that's when I got to do it. So let me ask you this. What's 5 plus 5, Cody?
10.
Okay. What's 8 plus 2?
10.
What's 7 plus 3?
10.
What's 2 plus or 3? See, we're back to the same.
10.
Yeah. Raw, not edited, folks. Here we go. Yeah. So at the end of the day.
He's an accountant, by the way.
Right. Can't do math in my head. That's why Excel exists. Calculators in Excel. So at the end of the day, we just threw out several different scenarios and arrived at the same answer. So there's so many ways to slice the pie to get to, hey, we distributed that. So you can arrive at the same answer in multiple different paths. That's the key to realizing, how can I delegate? Oh, they didn't do it the way I did it, but they still came to the same result. Good stuff. I'm good, right? You have to find out what works for you. So if time blocking is what works for you, if you're like, hey, I can shut the world off for 3 hours and work, do that. If it's, hey, I can spend 20 minutes a day. Have you ever heard of the 100-hour rule? Do you know what that is?
I think I have, but run me through it. Run us through it.
The 100-hour rule. If you spend 100 hours or over a period of a year, that's 18 minutes a day. If you spend 18 minutes a day on that one thing, or 100 hours straight on that one thing, you will be better than 95% of the population of the planet at that one discipline.
Oh yeah, Hormozy talks about this.
Yep. So it all comes down to if you spend 18 minutes a day on something. So I've done this with one of my clients. We just did a year-end tax projection for him. I was like, Nathan, let's take a look at your tax bill. So last year he paid, he's growing his business. He paid about $28,000 in taxes. We've spent about 10 to 12 hours this year so far together working on, and then he spent probably another 12 hours outside of me executing. So he spent about 20 to 24 hours on taxes this year. Do you know what his tax results are going to be?
What?
He's not going to owe $28,000. He's actually going to get about $5,000 back.
Wow. His
wife works, she has some withholding. And so he's like, we've been able to have that shift, about $33,000 in taxes, delta. And I said, okay, so 24 hours of work for $33,000. Is that a good ROI? For him, it was. Right? He was like, that's an amazing hour. We break that down by hour. And he's like, that's a killer hourly rate. So it's that consistency where people, when they are faced with hard things, rolling up your sleeves, developing your systems, rolling up your sleeves, developing delegation for a task, rolling up your sleeves for whatever, insert thing that I hate doing.
Yeah.
Getting in shape, right? I know what I need to do to get rid of the dad bod, right? I'm in bulking season right now. Have been for the last 10 years. We're not going there. But at the end of the day, there is no substitute for the hard, boring work. And so how do you make that easier? That's where my job is, to say, here, let me show you and give you a path to, it's still going to be work, but it's going to be work that's not insurmountable because you have a clear path on how to achieve.
That's so good. And just like if there's a saying that one of my mentors tells me, and he says, Cody, if you do what is hard now, life will be easy.
Yeah.
But if you do what is easy, life will always be hard.
Choose your hard.
Yep.
David Goggins or whoever says that.
I speak a lot of that in some of my own content and stuff too, right? Pay the price of discipline up front or the price of regret later. Goes for all areas of life, but for the context of protecting your focus, systems, processes, growing and scaling, you have to understand that you only have as much capacity that you have as a human being, meaning you only can be awake so many hours a day. You also got to use the bathroom. You got to eat. You got to sleep. You get cranky. You don't always feel good. You have a personal life. And when you look at the constraints that we have as a human being, our greatest asset becomes reducing our liabilities through processes to do things and getting other people inside of that system we built to accomplish those processes, right? I see the system as the whole thing. The process is the individual function within the system.
And my process is this that I help my clients with. I break it down into the 4 E's. So I tell people, you need education. You need to know what you don't know,
right?
Especially when it comes to something that's
so. With
foreign.
this, it's like you guys are mind mapping, right? Part of your education would actually be identifying everything that you do with people, right?
Right.
Most people don't even do that. You know, most business owners deliver a product or service that they don't actually have in writing everything they have to do to deliver it.
Right.
They just do it because they're just used to doing it. And then when they bring another person, they're like, so what do you want me to do? They're like, well, and they're like, how do I do that? And when they're like, oh, how do I do that? And there's no system, no process.
And with my system, the different levels, right? We have our levels where we completely transform your tax world, right? We remodel your tax house, so to speak. And then once we've remodeled you, we get into our packages, which we call transform. Transition is our middle package, and then transact is our baseline. So we say, are you on the transformation path? Are you on transitioning as you're growing and scaling? Or are you on a transaction, right? Transaction is we do your tax return. But even then we have a menu of services. We have 17 things that we do, to your point, like we have 17 different services that we offer. And all of that is with the intention of saying, okay, here, where are you at? Like the highest level transform, you may not, if you're a startup business, you're not ready for that high level stuff yet. You're still building and growing and scaling. If we were to introduce you to all that, you'd be like, that's super dope, but I can't do that right now. You're not in that level where you've progressed in your entrepreneurial journey. So to that point, we help people by saying, here's what you need to know, right? Here's what you absolutely need to know regarding this tax strategy that applies to you right now. So it's the educate. Then once we've given you some baseline knowledge that you're like, oh, that's super dope. Now we say, let's evaluate. Here's where I think a lot of people don't execute, because that's the third. It's educate, evaluate, and execute. People don't execute because they haven't fully evaluated the knowledge that they just received. They're like, that's super dope, but they don't say, how does that cool thing apply to me? We're intrinsically, I think we're intrinsically a little bit selfish. Like when we learn something, we're like, oh, how can I do that, right? Yeah. We all kind of go that's how we help to internalize our stuff. So we have to say, okay, I've learned something. How do I evaluate? How does that fit into my world? Well, it may not fit now. It may fit 6 months from now, or it may fit now. But once you've fully evaluated, now you're primed and ready to execute. So our entire model when people are talking to us and engaging with us is we're saying, okay, hey, you are not doing X, Y, and Z. So let's dive in on X. Here's what you need to know about X strategy, whether it's the Augusta rule, the 14-day rental, or forming a corporation, or paying yourself, or fringe benefits for employees, whatever it is that we can help you optimize, or selling your business through a deferred sales trust or anything like that, right? So we give them the education, then we say, here's how that applies to you. Here's the evaluation, and we make sure that people understand the connection points, because that's the glue. Like my mom said, stick to the job like glue, stick to the job till you're through. That's the glue. You fully evaluate and know and understand. Now you're like, let's go execute. Let's go, and get this done. So if you do that, if you get the education you need, get the evaluation tools and components, have the execution tools that you can execute on, now you're going to obtain what I call efficiency.
Yeah, so good. And one of the greatest ways I found to do this in these different areas of our life and business is hire somebody that is an expert in that thing you're trying to become educated about, evaluate, and put a plan of execution in. For example, I work with you, Chris. People work with you, pay you money, hire you because they want you in their corner, you and your team, to be able to educate them on what they don't. I want to know, hey, dude, I don't know a thing about taxes and business. Educate me on this. Well, help educate me on my own company, my own circumstance, how my company, the formation, what we should do, all of that. Help me evaluate what needs to be done. Identify, hey, Cody, these are the things we need to focus on this year based on your goals. And then tell me what I need to execute on so I can go do it. Some of it you might execute on, but the rest is going to be on me. As a business owner, there's nothing more I love, and I will spend money all day. I actually just paid you today, which is funny.
Oh yeah,
because it's all recurring. I paid you today, and it's funny because we were recording today, but because I have a peace of mind of knowing I have experts in my corner. They're helping me educate myself, evaluate what needs to be done, put plans of action. And then I have a list of things I need to execute on, which from our last meeting we do. All I have to do is go do that part.
Right.
And we achieve X outcome.
Right. And you don't have to. The beauty, like with my client, Nathan, right? He has a delta in his tax world of $33,000, right? That's significant for him and his family. Some people are like 33 grand, whatever. But I've learned to say $100, $1 is real money, and $1 may represent a different level of effort to one person than it does another. Doesn't mean that $1 million or $100 doesn't matter. So to him, that's a significant difference in his world. To the gal that's, I'm going to save 127 grand, a little over that actually. She's like, oh, wow. Yeah, that's pretty impactful. So, everybody is impacted differently, but the bottom line is taking that effort to say, okay, I need to do that, take that action and see the results. That's where the magic, there's this thing floating around on social media right now. The magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. 100%. In our business, in our marriage, in our relationships, if we're not spending the time to do the hard, boring work, to invest in our relationships, in our business, in our processes, the fundamentals, the universal truths of life are no different in business, in our religion, in our relationships, in our mental and physical well-being. It's all kind of the basic stuff. Yeah.
you can't ever avoid the hard work. The only thing you can do is shortcut through bringing people into your life and corner that have already been down the road and gotten bumped up and scraped up and could teach you from their wisdom and help you, hey, that path's not a good path. This is the path that will work for you. Right. But you still have to put in the boring work to walk the path.
Right. And I've been doing what I've been doing for almost 20 years. And recently, I'm constantly investing in myself, knowledge-wise. My license, to maintain my license with the IRS, I have to do so many hours of continuing education. Typically, I beat the minimum standard by almost double, right? I'm supposed to do 24 hours a year of continuing education. I'm almost double that this year, right? Because I'm learning and looking and saying, okay, am I don't know everything. So am I optimizing my knowledge for my clients in my lane, in the sandbox that I'm in? And I've recently shifted my perspective on a strategy that I was like, in the past, I was like, no, you don't want to do this. You don't want to do this. Now I'm like, okay, that makes sense because I heard somebody else present it in a way that I was like, hadn't considered that, hadn't seen that perspective.
We got new data.
Yeah, you have to be humble enough to realize I don't know everything. Hey, I'm going back to full circle, looking in the mirror and being like, yeah, I'm a sexy beast, right? You have to look at yourself with confidence and say, I can do this. But at the same time, say, I don't know everything.
Walk in humility and be willing to make change and innovate.
Yep.
And your industry is always going to change.
Absolutely.
It's just like mine is. Most of our industries are always going to change. So if you always are stuck in your ways and also know the strategy that worked for you a year ago doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work this year. Now there's a lot of data points that go into that depending on what you're speaking of, but always be open to new information and new data. A mentor of mine always told me, like, Cody, the plan you're on is the best plan you have till a better plan presents itself. Stay in the game stay in the game protocol, and apply soft offense on new information. And when new information changes the trajectory of the pathway, then pivot to the new pathway. And that will happen over and over.
I'm stealing that. Soft offense. I like that. It's like,
soft offense.
Yeah, I like that. I'm stealing that.
Yeah, steal it, bro. It's all regurgitated anyways. All right, we're over an hour, but before we go, I want to just a rapid fire for my business owners on taxes. Can you drop just like some no BS, no fluff, straight game? And maybe they get it, maybe they don't. Tax saving things that business owners can do that are listening to the show that they can look into, and then we'll tell them how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah. So one thing and I think I introduced you to this, the ADA compliance is a huge one. There's a lot of people. So to back this up, the Americans with Disability Act, right, was enacted in 1990 for small business to be compliant for disabled people, so to access their business. So a lot of people think, oh, my wheelchair ramp to my business, or I need to have the bathroom stall, a bar for somebody it's in a wheelchair or whatever, right? So they think in terms of physical space. Well, in 2008, the ADA, Americans with Disability Act, was updated to include the virtual space. So there are a lot of businesses that have a lot more of a virtual presence than they think they do. Website, social media content, YouTube, all the stuff, the content creation to promote their business and get themselves out there to be like, hey, I'm here and I can serve you, right? So if you're investing in ADA compliance, there's a tax credit available, potentially up to $5,000 per year.
Wow.
So if you've stuck with us for this hour, that could be worth up to $5,000 for you every year. So you have to be careful. You have to make sure that you are actually investing in ADA compliance, right? So you want to work with your web professionals, social media marketing, whoever your marketing team is, saying, hey, is the stuff that we're pushing out ADA compliant? Let's say you spend $15,000 a year on marketing, right? You should typically be spending 6 to 10% of your budget, your revenue on marketing and promotion anyway. That's kind of the standard. Is 100% of that 15 grand ADA compliance? No. You have to be judicious in saying, okay, how much of this spending is actually on the compliance portion of it? So that's a case-by-case scenario to say, what does that look like? But again, if that's something that they educate, right? You didn't know that until, oh, I now know that. So now what do you do to evaluate that? So, okay, look into my business and figure out, am I meeting that criteria? Is my website ADA compliant? Am I adding closed captions so that people can read my content?
Even if you had to spend $2,500 for someone to make your website ADA compliant, you get a $5,000 credit.
You don't get the full $5,000 until you spend it's 50% of what you spend up to $10,000.
Okay, so you got to spend $10K on marketing, but the marketing budget can be wrapped into including that.
Right. So there's as long as the marketing efforts include the ADA compliance and you're making sure that you're hitting those marks. Yes.
Gotcha.
So that could, for some people that doesn't yield the full $5,000 credit. For some people it gives them $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. But at the end of the day, it's the IRS is your death by 1,000 cuts. So if you can fight back with, hey, I'm going to save $1,000, $1,500, $5,000 there, and then this other strategy and this other strategy and this other strategy to pull in to get to the point where you're cutting your tax bill by 30 to 50%.
So good. And then tell them about the Augusta rule.
Yeah. So the Augusta rule is this little loophole. It's actually been around since the 70s.
Now, is that from Augusta, Georgia?
Augusta, Georgia. So the loophole is it's section 280A little g of I call it the Infernal Revenue Code, right? The Internal Revenue Code. You actually have the ability to rent your home to your business, and you don't have to, as long as it's 14 days or less. So 14 days or less, you don't have to pay rent or pay income tax, on the rent that you collect. So your business gets to deduct the rent, and then you get to have that money tax-free. So it's a way to pull money tax-free out of your business. To qualify for this, you do have to be an LLC or a corporation, sole proprietors. When you're a sole proprietor, and I tell people I don't play an attorney on Zoom, TV, podcast interviews, anything like that. I'm not an attorney, so you have to talk to an attorney about what the difference between a sole proprietor and an LLC or a corporation. But bottom line is, a corporation creates a separate legal entity. So your business is actually, in the eyes of the law, a person. So you're renting to another person your home. You can do this whether you rent or own your home. It doesn't have to be owned by you, as long as it's your domicile, and as long as you're not like Airbnb. So if you're, maybe a traveling nurse, or you travel a lot and while you're gone, you rent out your home. If you're renting your home to other people for more than 14 days a year, you've busted this. So you can't rent your home out for more than 14 days a year.
Dang, it's gold.
But on average, when we work with clients, we're getting people to, I have a specific methodology where we walk people through and say, hey, here's how you can get these quotes, comparable quotes, and establish a market value for what the value of your venue is. For my clients, I do that for you. So I do the back end for you, so you don't have to deal with it. But at the end of the day, show them here's how you can get up to, on the low end, I help people get about a $21,000 write-off that they've been missing. On the high end, I've had somebody capture as much as $144,000.
Sheesh, that's a big house.
He had a really unique property. He had a resort style home with a RV, like 3 RV hookups. So he had a really unique house. But that one strategy alone can yield significant deduction, which can yield significant tax refund.
It's so good, man.
So what I have is, in January, we're dropping a free to the planet. So if you're a self-employed person, we have our tax focus system, talking about focus.
Let's go.
So we have a newsletter basically at the beginning of every month.
So this will be your camera. Say it to them.
So every month we drop a newsletter and say, here are 2 or 3 things that you need to do right now. So in January, in February, in March, here are 2 or 3 things that you need to do right now to optimize your taxes. So if you want that, it's a free newsletter, maketaxesfair.com /Cottle, COTTLE,
yep.
Right? That's homage to Cody. Thank you for having us here. So maketaxesfair.com /Cottle, COTTLE, and you can sign up for that newsletter. And then with that, we not only give you a newsletter, we have later in the month, typically the second week of the month, we have an open office hour.
Oh, wow.
So there's a virtual open office hour every month where we dissect. It's actually designed to be 90 minutes. So for the first 30 minutes of that, we dissect those 2 or 3 strategies and say, hey, if you read about it and you're like, I don't understand this, we'll break it down. You'll in a webinar format, you'll be able to learn about, here's what the common pitfalls are, here's how you overcome that, here's how you execute. The next 30 minutes of the 90 minutes is open office hour. If you pre-submit your question, either about those 2 or 3 strategies or anything else that you need help with tax-wise, we will help answer those questions. So in that next 30 minutes, we will open office hour style. We'll take them as they first come, first serve. If you are proactive, because we are proactive in our business, we do business on purpose. We want you to be intentional about submitting your questions ahead of time. And then the last 30 minutes, if we have answered all the questions, then we move to a true open office hour. So, hey, anybody in the audience, we've already worked through all of our questions, or we have time remaining. Now, what's on your mind? Do you need help? So our whole system is designed, again, that's free to the planet. If you're self-employed, we are here to help you save you money on taxes. We recognize tax strategy is not like buying a pizza, right? You don't just wake up and say, oh, I want tax strategy, right? You need to understand and be like, hey, are these people legit? Are they giving good advice? Are they giving stuff? Is this going to impact my life? So we want to share that with the world.
Come on.
And help people out.
Yeah. So maketaxesfair.com /Cottle.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, guys, go get this. I mean, Chris has been in my corner for years now, not just a good friend, but he's my advisor when it comes to anything tax. So it's a free newsletter, correct?
Free.
Cost you guys nothing. Maketaxesfair.com /Cottle. Go sign up for the newsletter. I mean, the fact that he's giving you an open office hour is pretty crazy because I pay him a lot of money to be able to meet with him and get on calls with him and have access to him. So take advantage of that. I could not endorse someone more when it comes to the field of expertise that God has called you in. Chris, before we wrap up here, anything else you just feel on your heart that you want to share with the audience today?
So I am a huge proponent of mental health. I'm a sexual abuse survivor from Boy Scouts of America when I was 10, 11 years old. Had some encounters there, and just over my life, I've hit many walls, right? Many walls as an entrepreneur. We talked about systems and how to overcome that. And you've, your mentorship when I talked about, Stanford and loneliness, I'm grateful for you and our friendship and grateful to be here. And so I would just say any entrepreneur out there, like, don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Don't be afraid to, learn to communicate in productive ways, in ways that you can communicate your needs. And I've learned that myself. My fiance is like, you're a great communicator. When you have a problem, you express it. You're not angry. You're really communicating well. That's been a lot of therapy, a lot of work, a lot of working on Chris. Yeah. So, just realize you're not alone. You're not in this game on your own. There's powers beyond us, whatever your beliefs are that guide and make sure that you're investing in yourself. I think when I have people that take time away from work and go on a vacation and ping me like, oh, I'm on vacation. I'm like, then why are you responding? Do an autoresponder on your calendar and I'll get back to you. Like, take time for yourself. I think we don't take enough time to take care of ourselves. So make sure that you are doing that for yourself. The world desperately, desperately needs good people that can show up and the best versions of ourselves to be out there and, be kind to others and just invest in yourself in that way.
Yeah, man. So good. So good. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been an honor. It's been a powerful episode. And guys, if you listen to this episode today and, it really resonated with you, you got some nuggets from it. I produced this entire show out of my own pocket, out of my own dime. I don't do it to make money. I don't do it to build my businesses. I do it because I reached a point in my life where conversations like this changed my life so much that I felt selfish if I didn't share them with the world. The one way that you can help Chris and I is just share the podcast. Share the podcast with someone that could hear this, that needs to hear it, that would be inspired by it, that will walk away with something they can implement in their life. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe. That helps us reach more people, grow on these platforms. And one of the ways you could really help the show, grow and reach more people is just leave a 5-star review. Write something about the impact that the show has made on your life. And, if you're not yet, follow us on social media. Chris, what's your socials?
I am Chris Middleton on Instagram, and I'm really bad at that. I don't know what
I actually did his social media years ago and set that up. So he's definitely, I am Chris Middleton. You can find him there. And then obviously through the newsletter, they'll get plugged up with you. Yep. And then for me, guys, if you're not, I am Cody Cottle on Instagram and always bringing guys like Chris around.
So we have at maketaxesfair.com, we have a thing, we say friends don't let friends overpay the government. So, and yes, we have put that on a t-shirt.
So maketaxesfair.com.
Yes, sir. And so I'd say, if you found value today, don't keep that to yourself, right? Share that with others.
Yeah, and it goes a long way, man. I can think about so many podcasts I've listened to, whether it's Hermosi or someone else or podcasts I follow that I've sent to people that I've just felt like, hey, I really feel like this person would benefit from this episode. And they've gotten back to me a week later, 2 weeks later, man, thank you so much for sending that podcast to me. You have no idea how much I needed that. And I just think that that's so powerful. And what a beautiful place the world would be if we were just willing to take the extra little bit of effort to encourage our friends, to send our friends things that we find that bring value in our life and know can bring value into their life. What a beautiful place it would be. But yeah, guys, that's it for this episode. And as always, go make today great. Boom. Bro, so good.